Thank you, Lee. Thank you. There's a little bit on that story about how we met that Lee didn't tell you, which is that Eurostar conference. I was a very unimportant person. I think I might have given a track. It might have been the first track I'd ever given at a conference. And Lee was one of the keynote speakers. And so I knew who Lee was. But Lee, of course, didn't know who I was. And it had been the conference dinner. And I will fess up, I had had a glass or two of wine. And when we came out from the conference dinner, I knew I needed to get back to my hotel. And I wasn't quite sure how to get there. And I wasn't keen on going on the metro, but I was feeling a bit cautious about what I should do. And then I saw Lee, and I recognized him. So I rushed up to him, and I said, "Lee Copeland, you're famous. I can share a cab with you into the town." And he went, but he let me share the cab, and he realized that I was all right, really. So it's such a pleasure to be here in San Diego. It's such a pleasure to be talking about lifelong learning, continuous improvement, and about how we as individuals can try and tend towards greatness, I think, perhaps. But becoming a great tester, what does that mean? I've got some pictures that I'm going to use, which I hope come out reasonably well for you. I had a bit of a test of them. So here we've got a couple of boats. And the one on the left, hang on, I'm just going to do girly inability to do left and right. The one on the left, yeah, from your point of view, is this rather broken down boat that pathetically says on it, "For sale," and a telephone number. And the other is this wonderful boat I saw in Sydney Harbour, sailing across the harbour, just looking utterly beautiful earlier this year. So there's maybe a little metaphor there. See if my key thing works. There we go. So where am I from? Here we are in San Diego. Isn't it beautiful? That wonderful Californian sunshine and those beautiful boats down in the Marine Museum and all the excitement of watching the banana boat unloading and loading and going away and all that good stuff. And of course, there's surfing. This exciting surfing going on down the road. And here are people surfing in San Diego in two of the pictures and Australia in the one up in the top corner, because I know there's a couple of Australians here, so I thought I'd pop one in for you guys as well. But I want you to know that I come from a land far, far away, and I live right in the middle of that country, as far from the sea as you can get. I live in the middle of England. You couldn't get further from the sea in my country. But we do surfing. We do surfing. And here's some pictures of people surfing near my hometown. This is surfing on a river called the River Severn, and it has a peculiar tidal phenomenon called a tidal bore, where the sea coming in pushes against the river coming down, and you get these big waves, and they travel for miles up the river. It happens every so often, and when it happens, loads and loads of surfers turn up to surf. And you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people there surfing. Notice the beautiful clarity of the water. And in this one here, the exquisite warmth of the situation, all these people huddled up in the winter. If you look on YouTube, there's some fantastic pictures of people doing this in the snow. So, I mean, that's tough stuff, surfing in the snow. And the record there was set for the river last August, 5.7 miles in 35 minutes. Brilliant. So we may not have very tall waves, but we do have quite fast-moving waves of a different sort. And of course, you have different hazards there, like the supermarket trolleys in the river and stuff like that to negotiate. But people have fun doing it. Personally, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't go in that water if you paid me to. So who am I? Okay, blah-de-blah-de-blah. You've heard about all of that from Lee. And at the moment, I work for a company called Testing Solutions Group as a consultant. But this is my exciting news. From the end of next week, I'm going to be working for another company. I'm going to work for a company called Dolphin Computer Access as the quality manager. And Dolphin provide accessibility software. So the exciting thing for me about this is I have a lot of new things to learn. This is really exciting. I've got into a new job, a new role. I'm going to be looking at processes across the whole company, which is something I've done before, but for a while I've been focusing more on the software testing. I'm going to be having to work with new types of clientele. The product managers I'm going to be working with have visual impairments, registered blind. I'm going to have to find a new way of reporting, a new way of doing presentations, a new way of interacting. So this is fascinating for me, so I'm really excited about that. So we have a challenge here, which is the challenge that Lee discussed with me when we were talking about what he wanted me to do in this keynote. And the challenge is that there's a lot of changes in the industry. Now, I'm not going to dwell on that because I think Linda yesterday summarized it beautifully. Change is happening, and it's happening faster and faster. We need to keep up with that in some way if we're going to remain relevant and employed. And I'm not just talking about you here, I'm talking about me as well. So what I want to talk about is how we, collectively, are going to meet these new challenges. And what I'm going to talk about is not the technical details of what we need to learn, but the mindset, the frame of mind we need to be in order to learn things. What type of thinking do we need to be doing? What type of personality trait will help us? And in your pack, there's a load of graphs about are testers any good? And I'm not going to go through that because, well, for a number of reasons, but because I think actually it summarizes in 3 important questions. Are we great testers? Possibly. Some of us may be less great. Are all our colleagues great testers? Possibly. Possibly not. Can we make do with the skills we have right now? Almost certainly not. And that goes for me as much as it does for you. One of the things about skill sets is that you have to constantly renew them. So rather than show you the graphs, I think I'm saying to you, this is our challenge. You're going to talk to me. My laptop's quite elderly, and it goes to sleep every so often, like elderly people do. So what do I mean about a great tester? Who's a great tester? Do I mean somebody who's a keynote speaker? Could be. Keynote speakers could be keynote speaking because they're great testers, but there might be other reasons they're keynote speaking. They might be coming in to talk about other subjects, for example. Do I mean people who've written books? Possibly. Possibly. Lee mentioned that I am keen on gardening, and to help me improve, I went on a course about vegetable gardening and fruit gardening, and we were being shown how to prune fruit trees by one of the lecturers at the college who was very experienced, and exquisitely, as the pruning expert, her name was Hilary Twigg. That's brilliant, isn't it? You just couldn't make it up. And she's showing how to professionally prune an apple tree. And then she did this for a bit, and then one of the other people on the course said, well, that's not how it shows you how to do it in the books. And she looked at him and she said, yeah, well, the problem with books is, and I'm saying this to you as an author and knowing there's other authors in the room, the problem with books is the people who write the books often look at other books to see what they should be saying, and then they refer back. They don't go and look to see what people are actually doing. They don't go and find necessarily what the latest things are to do. I thought it was really interesting because there's a certain amount you can learn from books, but almost just through the length of time it takes to get a book published, Dirk Jan, you'll agree with me on this, I think, you know it's going to take you 2 years or something like that. It's just an incredibly long process. Things are going to be out of date by the time you get there. It's really quite interesting. So, could be a great tester if they're an author. Are you a great tester? Some of you may be sitting there thinking, yeah, I'm a great tester. And some of you may be sitting there thinking, no, I'm not a great tester. And some of you are going to be right and some of you are going to be wrong in both cases. What about your team? Have you got great testers on your team? Probably you have. So what I want to do now is I want to celebrate some people who are great testers and who have never spoken at software testing conferences or, as far as I know, at any other sort of conference, who have never written books or papers, who are quietly getting on with their jobs magnificently. some of the best automation people I know, some of the best technical testers I know, one of the best test managers I know. There's actually people on that list who aren't software testers. Going back to what Randy was talking about yesterday, some of them aren't even human. One of them's my cat. If you want to see things tested, including my patients, you just watch my cat. It's extraordinary. Some of them are over 90. One of them isn't yet one. But they all test things really magnificently. Now, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to think of somebody you know who is a great tester and is not a keynote speaker or an author or in any way well known, because they'll be around quietly getting on with their jobs. And what is it that they can teach us? What can we observe them doing that we can all learn from? I also want to reflect on something that came up from both the keynotes yesterday about the challenges to us and whether we're doing the right thing or not. Capers-Jones, I love books actually, having been slightly sarcastic about it, I do love books, I have a great source of information. Capers-Jones has written a book which came out at Christmas, which I will now wave at you. This is magnificent, this book. It's 30 years of accumulated metrics about the industry and what we do and don't do. And he says in this book, poor software engineering led to flawed economic models which led to the recession. He's squarely saying, in the IT industry, we have to take some of the blame for this. If we had had better economic models, maybe we could have done something. And I'm adding on to that, when there's a recession, people do cutbacks. And oh, look, now we're going to get into a vicious circle if we don't do something about it. And the thing is, we can look at that and say, oh, yeah, that was that bad development and maintenance that was the poor software engineering. But actually, it's also the bad testing and the bad measurement and information. That's our bit of the job. So the bad development and maintenance, if we're not finding the flaws, and if we're not providing convincing information about risks, people aren't going to listen to us. And that means, I'm making these slides deliberately horrible to look at because I want you to realize what a horrible thing this is. Because we've handed over bad information and done bad testing, people won't believe in us. That makes us maybe first people on the line. So I think we need to think about that. So what I'm talking about is what we need to do individually and collectively to get better. And I'm going to remind you about what... oh, God, my mind's gone a blank. What the first keynote speaker yesterday... Where's my head? My senior moment. I'm sorry, my whole brain's just disappeared. Said it was frogs, boiling frogs. Yeah? You put a frog in boiling water and it objects. You put it in cold water and warm it up and it just kills itself. Linda. I'm so sorry, Linda. Do apologize. So here's a frog, just to remind us of that frog not adapting to change, not noticing change around it. Now, we need to think about what skills we need in order to improve our testing. And Julian Harty, who's here this week, and somebody called Stuart Reed, who isn't here this week, they put together the idea of a personal test maturity matrix. The idea that there were 4 sectors that you needed to look at and consider to self-reflect in order to decide where you needed to improve. Obviously, the testing skills, domain knowledge, IT skills, and soft skills. And I've been talking to them about that for a number of years, and then just recently suddenly looked at that and thought, actually, I think there's some other things as well. So I actually added some things to it. So I took the soft skills bit and split it down, having talked to them. I think there's interpersonal skills, which is genuinely the soft skills. There's managerial skills and there's business skills, and I'll explain what I mean by those in a moment. And the point about this is for you to reflect on for yourself about where you've got to in your own practice. Lee mentioned that I'm a teacher. I'm a qualified teacher in the UK, and one of the requirements from the professional body is that you carry out what's called reflective practice. And reflective practice is where you think about what you're doing and what you've just done and how you could do it better. So it's not about measuring yourself against some scale of other people. Am I the best teacher in the country? It's about, am I a better teacher than I was yesterday? And it's the same with the testing. So this is not about other people measuring you. This is about you taking individual responsibility for measuring yourself. Okay, so testing skills, don't need to go through what those are. You could tell me what sort of testing skills you think people need. IT skills. Now, this is an interesting one because there's a lot of debate in the testing community about how much IT skills a tester needs. So I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to tell you that in the British Computer Society, if you are a chartered IT professional, whichever part of the computer world you're working in, you're required to have a basic understanding of the other areas. So if you're a hardware person who's a chartered IT professional, you would be required to know something about software testing. And similarly, if you're a software tester, you would be required to have some understanding of hardware. Not deep, but an understanding of it, some IT understanding. And the other one on that side is the specialists and is the domain knowledge, which is where you might be working in financial services or retail or shipping or defense or embedded systems. You can see some mobile phones people here, for example. All sorts of different areas, governmental, non-governmental, for-profit, not-for-profit. You will have different things that you need to look at. And what's interesting is if you're a test consultant, quite often you're being a generalist and you have to go into lots of different organizations with different types of domain. But very often if you're working within one company, you can become very specialist in that domain. So you've got an overlap, different type of skills happening. I said I'd talk a little bit about these ones on the left-hand side. So the interpersonal skills are things like communication, negotiation, listening, empathy, those sorts of areas. The managerial skills, by that I mean things like project management, people management, strategic thinking, leadership. And by business skills, I mean the ability to do costings, cost-benefit analysis, budget control, estimating, sales and marketing, public relations or PR, ideas generation. This is the stuff that makes a business run. And it's something that I think in the testing community, and actually to some extent in the IT community as a whole, we don't think about enough. We don't think about how to go about selling our services. And yet for many of us, we're in the position where if we don't sell our services, they're going to be outsourced to somebody else. And we don't think about how sales and marketing people or PR people interrelate with others to be persuasive. So I think there's some interesting skills there which we need to look at. And I know some of those things on this side, I'll be caging my bets there. I know I haven't got the full skill set there that I'd really like to have. Okay, so if we look at one individual, we could do some sort of measurement. And here's somebody who has got high testing and domain and business skills and good interpersonal skills, but they don't know a lot about IT. So they have some gaps there in their knowledge. And the point there is, as a team, we can actually fill those gaps in. We look at to see if we're sensible who we recruit by looking at those gaps. Julian Harty yesterday was talking about when you're trying to retrain, when you're trying to up your skills, to look at what you're already good at and get better at those things. In other words, to become more specialist. Now, I think that's a very valuable thing to do. But perversely, I'm going to argue against it today, not because I think he's wrong, but because I think we also have to look at the things that we're not good at. Particularly if we have an existing team and we can see that we've got gaps. Somebody is going to have to do the managerial stuff, even if we're not very good at it as a team. Somebody's going to have to pick up some of those areas and do them. Okay, so enlarging this tester skill space, now I'm going to be talking about what you personally and what I personally need to think about in order to support our desire to improve. So that's where I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to think about the personal attributes that help us think about what it is that we need to achieve, how we're going to go about improving. And the first of these I want to talk about is aptitude. And this is your natural ability or inclination to do something. And this is where we come into Julian's point about working on the skills you know you're already good at in order to improve and become more of a specialist. But I think this quote from T.S. Eliot is really interesting, where he's saying, actually, the point about being really educated is you tackle the things you're not good at. You try and look at the things where you have a lack, and you try and understand those things and get better at them so that you are broadly educated, so that you know more things. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And to do that, I'm going to tell you about something that happened when I was about 4. When I was little, I wasn't an easy child in many respects. And my father, my dad, likes to tell jokes, still does, but he used to tell me jokes. And I'm not the best person in the world to tell a joke to, and consequently, I'm not the best person to tell a joke. So I'm going to tell you the joke my dad told me, and I'm going to show you what happened in my mind, aged 4. So here was my dad's joke. A man gets into a railway carriage, and he's got a lemon in his ear. And the other passenger says to him, "Why have you got a lemon in your ear?" And the man says, "You've heard of a hearing aid. This is a lemonade." See, I listened to this, and I thought, what a peculiar thing to say to me. How strange my father is sometimes. So the first question is, I have to ask him, is, "Dad, what's a hearing aid?" So he explains what a hearing aid is. Okay, so think about this for a bit. So, okay, railway carriage, lemon, hearing aid, lemonade. How do you get a lemon in your ear? I don't know. Okay, let's try this. So in my mind, I'm thinking, we're probably walking along the road. I'm saying, Dad, tell me the joke again, but this time with an orange. Okay, so man gets in railway carriage, an orange, heard of a hearing aid, this is an orange aid. That worked. Okay, tell me the joke again, but this time with an apple. Man gets in a railway carriage, he puts an apple in his ear, heard of a hearing aid, this is an apple aid. And Dad's saying to me, "You see, that doesn't work. That doesn't, see, you've broken the joke now. It doesn't work anymore. The joke does not work with apple. Okay? It's not designed to work with apple." So why not? I said, "Well, you don't get apple aid." I said, "You get cider, but that's not called apple aid." Okay, so I think about this for a bit more. And then I remember in the shop at the end of the road where we're not allowed to go because it's expensive and it's full of things we're not allowed to eat and drink because they're bad for you, one of the most forbidden things is cherry aid. Is the lady here with the red bag? Where's the lady with the red bag? Is she here? She's not here. Okay. There's a lady with a wonderful red bag going around the conference. It's like covered with sequins. Bright red. So there's this bright red cherry aid that we're not allowed. So I know there's this thing called cherry aid. So I say, "Okay, Dad, tell me the joke again, but this time with cherries." At this point, like, he feels getting tetchy at this point. "Okay, why are you asking me that?" I said, "Because I've heard of cherry aid." "Okay, we do the joke again. It works. Fantastic." So I've got it. Right, citrus fruit works. Apples don't work. Cherries do work because there's a thing called cherry aid. What else could I try now? And I've got this whole list of questions and ideas backed up in my head. So I say to him, "Dad, tell me the joke again, but this time with lettuces." And he's like, "I am not telling you the joke again. Sit there and work it out for yourself. You know what's going to happen. The joke does not work with lettuces." I'm sitting there thinking, windows, doors, plasticine, toy trains, cars. You know, and it's like, he said, "I'm going away now. I'm leaving you there, all right? Talk to your mother later if you want to. I'm going off to my den." Okay, so I have an aptitude for the bits of testing that are to do with asking people difficult questions. I was breaking things, including other people, at an early age. That's not what I need to work on. I'm already aggravating enough. There are other things that I do need to work on in order that my testing is improved. Because it's not enough just to ask the aggravating questions and watch things explode. There are things that I'm not good at, that I fail at. Teamwork, being organised. I'm not very good at maths. I'm not very good at listening. I'm not very good at relaxing. I don't like flying. There's a whole bunch of other things up there. I have to work hard at these things. I wrote a book about teamwork because nobody else had written a book that explained to me how I, as somebody who is not a natural people person, who wants to spend most of their time by herself, needs to operate in a team nevertheless. That's what that book's about. It's about dealing with the fact of not actually knowing how to get on with other people, not knowing how to network. Julian said to me the other day, we were having a discussion about some piece of work we're doing together, and I wanted a plan, and he was saying, it's fine, we don't need a plan yet. And then he said to me, you need a plan, I don't need a plan. And the answer to that is not that Julian is less organised than me, it is that I am less organised than Julian. If I don't have the discipline of the plan as a starting point, I will disintegrate. Entropy will happen to me at a rapid pace. Right? So the things that you've got an aptitude for, you maybe don't need to look at as much as the things that support your ability to shine with that aptitude. Your list will be different to my list. You will have different things you need to work on. In fact, the whole thing about this talk is at the end of it, you can feel really smug about all the things you can do that I can't do. Okay, hard work. Hard work's really difficult. It's really difficult to concentrate on things. I have some friends who have relatives who are professional violinists, and I remember Sue said to me, it's going to be wonderful when they come and stay, because they said they had to do a lot of practice. We're going to be hearing this wonderful music. No, they were hearing 6 hours of scales a day. And it's the same with the testing. You know, I use a lot of techniques when I'm testing, but every time I come new to a project, if I haven't used them for a bit, the first thing I have to do is sit down and have a go at some exercises just to get up to speed again. And you know, it's not like magic how you get these things. And some of that's to do with things we do individually, like our dance practice, and some things we do as a group, like a barn raising. And I think it's important to realise that we need the individual and the team hard work in order to succeed. But we have to make an effort at it. It's about renewing those skills. That is hard work. I see that constantly in my vegetable gardening. Every year I fail at something, the next year there's something to get better at. Gardening's quite nice in that sense because you have that seasonal cycle, so you always have that chance to start again. There's no reasons why our IT work shouldn't be the same, particularly if you're working in agile or iterative. But even if you're in long, waterfall-y sorts of projects, just keep looking each month. What did I do last month? What do I need to actually renew this month to get better? Self-motivation. When I was a teenager, I remember my mother saying to me, there's nobody out there to do it for you. You're by yourself in this life. You get out there, you do it for yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. Now, she didn't mean by that there was no support and no friends. What she meant was, if you want to get better at something, you've got to do the work. You have to motivate yourself to do the work. And I think that's really interesting because I think other people can demotivate you, but only you can motivate yourself. You have to want it. You have to want it enough to be able to go and work at it. And I'm telling you, I don't think there's probably an expert in the industry that wouldn't tell you that it's been hard work to get where they've got to. Whether they're a quiet expert getting on with it in their own workplace or an expert who comes out and talks about it. We need to provide our own stimulation and enthusiasm and energy. Now, I went to a great talk at a conference in Melbourne by Kim McCarthy from IBM, and she was talking about the difference between procrastination and taking time to think. And I asked her about it in more detail, because I'm a great procrastinator. My friends around the conference will know that from Monday afternoon, I was saying things like, right, well, I'm going to finish my keynote this afternoon. Okay, 2 hours later, what have you done? Well, I did my laundry. You know, so we all do it. But Kim said something really interesting to me. She said she thought the real procrastination was when you were doing things that looked busy, like your emails. And the bit where you're apparently doing nothing, going for a walk, doing your laundry, sitting and thinking, there's real thinking going on. So hard work also involves the point where you haven't got pen and paper in your hand and you aren't in front of your computer, where you're sitting and thinking. You're letting stuff mull over. That is also an important part of it. And that helps with the self-motivation because you've given yourself the space and then you can come back to it. And the reward of that self-motivation is success of one sort or another. Who's here from the Netherlands? Put your hands up if you're from the Netherlands. Stand up, you guys from the Netherlands. Stand up. I want to celebrate something here. Martin Pol from the Netherlands, 11th of September, was honoured with a knighthood for his services to the IT industry in terms of testing. And I think that's brilliant. I think, that's just well done, you guys, because I think it's really important that. But that's not the cause of, he didn't, Martin Pol wasn't sitting there when he was a kid thinking, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get into software testing and one day I'll get a knighthood. No, this is the effect of his hard work and self-motivation and enthusiasm for what he's doing. And it's just magnificent to see somebody in the industry actually being honoured by their government in that way. And all of this is about perseverance. Just keep plugging on. Genius is actually not really about very high intelligence. It's not really about inspiration in the sense of I've had a sudden idea. It's about working hard. All the people you can think of who have had great successes, it is because they have persevered. Scientific breakthroughs come through years and years and years of work. So don't grumble, keep plugging on. And I thought about that when the banana boat was going out earlier this week. Those two little tugs were nudging it backwards and forwards, stopping it, starting it. And it was really interesting to see it. And I was thinking there's been occasions on improvement projects where I've said to somebody, my God, this organisation is like turning an oil tanker. I feel like giving up with them. And I was looking at these tugboats and thinking, you imagine the tugboat captain saying, oh, God, turning this banana boat, it's like turning a banana boat. I'm going home now, it's too difficult. So there we are. They did turn it, and off it went. So we need to persist. We need to do the difficult things. We need the ability to change, and we all hate changing, even when we ask for the change. Even when it's something we want, it's scary. Even when, I'm really excited about starting the job the week after next, I'm also really frightened. Frightened of the change. And I think this is, we've got to think about that. We've got to see that in each other, that people are frightened of the change. I'll give you another anecdote from when I was little. This was even littler because I didn't start talking at all until I was 3. I didn't know this until recently. My mother told me the other week, and she was saying, nothing happened, no noise, no mama, no papa, nothing. I was just sitting there, nothing happening, watching everything that was going on. And she was just talking to me like I was an adult the whole time. And then she said, one day she said to me, what would we like for breakfast today? And out of nowhere I said, I would like some porridge and poached eggs on toast, please. Where's that come from? But it's like, it took me 3 years to learn how to do that, and during that period of time, I wasn't prepared to expose myself in any way to failing. Now, that's a really bizarre mindset, isn't it? But I think as adults, it's even worse, because we really don't want, and I see people this in training courses, that they don't want to give an answer in case they're wrong. But it's all right to be wrong. We're all wrong all the time, constantly. That's what human beings do. They make mistakes continuously. And change is about a series of mistakes we're making. So we actually have to, we have to go with that, really. Every day I'm frightened. So if you're frightened every day as well, don't worry. We're all in it together. Everybody's scared. So there's our frog again. Remember, slow change, quick change, we've got to remember it. A little inspiration. I saw this quote because we said, I couldn't do it. I wasn't inspired. Nothing inspiring happens at this organization. I just can't think what to do next. I'm stuck. And Beebe Moore Campbell, as I grow older, part of my emotional survival plan must be to actively seek inspiration instead of passively waiting for it to come to me. I was in Denver last week, and I went to the art museum there, which is magnificent. Now, you're not going to be able to see this picture properly, especially at the back. It's there to remind me rather than for you. Go to Denver and see it. But this picture, which is really busy, it's hundreds and hundreds of figures, and they're getting paint out of a well, and they're moving the paint around, and in between it, there's 6 or 7 images of the artist, in one of which he's just like collapsed on the floor like this. And the title of the painting is something like, "Another day in the studio and nothing on the canvas." Now you see what he's done there? He sat there in the studio saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm going to paint about what I don't know what to do. And the thing here is, when you talk to artists and writers and other people like that, every day they do something that's in their practice. Even if as a writer, if what you're doing there is sitting there writing, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write. So as a tester, we might be there, or as a manager, we might be saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know. Do something. Like, do a test of something. Even if all you've done is open Excel and see if you can make it break in some way. Just get the brain moving. Professional people, particularly in the arts, but and in the sciences, they just go there every day and they do it again. It's about actually making the inspiration come to you, being your own inspiration, as well as taking it from other people. A little bit of luck. Gary Player. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister from the Second World War, success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. In the middle of the Second World War, he had to do a national broadcast to get everybody's spirits up and gee people on to the next effort when things were really bad. And he broadcast and he said, I have nothing to bring you except blood and sweat and toil and tears. I think that's brilliant. I have nothing to bring you except it's going to be really hard. But you know, isn't that inspirational? Because then the guy said, yeah, this is going to be hard. Come with me and help me do this hard thing. It was honest. He wasn't saying it was going to be good or easy. So we make our own luck. In that respect, we make our own luck by keeping on plugging at it. And, you know, being exploratory and testing and thinking about things and being interested and being excited keeps on all the time. Is the Australian contingent in the room? Yes. Do you know what that is, Sharon? Big spiny thing on the beach. It's a pufferfish. She knows what a pufferfish is. Are they safe? No, they're not safe, are they? So I'm in Australia for the first time. There's a nice beach. What do you do with the beach? You take your shoes off, you paddle down the beach in bare feet. And I'm thinking, isn't it strange? Everybody else on the beach has got shoes on. Why is that, I wonder? Oh, there's an interesting fish washed up and being washed back and forth with big, interesting spines. I wonder what that is. What I need to do is take lots of really close-up photographs of it, and I need a measurement to show just how big this fish is, so I'm going to put my foot right next to it and take a photograph. It's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. How stupid can you get? However, I survived it, as you can see. Sharon's going to kill me later, aren't you? Dear, oh dear. Thinking about the team for success as well as individual learning. Do you know what the word solipsism means? I found it out recently. The view that the self is all that can be known to exist. What this means is, if, like me, you tend towards solipsism, if somebody isn't in the room with you, you sort of start forgetting they're there unless you make an effort. They stop existing. And I just wanted to say, you know, nothing happens without the help of others. And there's like Sharon and Dot and Mika and Dirk-Jan and Lee and Julian and Stuart and so many other people who've pushed me along to get me to doing this, you know, this keynote. And the kangaroo is there because I was thinking about how one appears to the team. And one of the first places I was doing testing, the developers gave everybody in the team a nickname, and I didn't know what mine was. And then I heard them talking about Skippy. Who's Skippy? What are you talking about, Skippy? And then I suddenly realized one day that when I found a bug in something, you know, I get all anxious. And I go across to the developer. And this developer was just looked at me and he said, "What's that, Skippy? When you overloaded the accumulation factors, the system crashed. We'll have to get down that mine straight away and rescue those children." think, oh God, that's what I'm doing, isn't it? I'm just like going over making squeaky noises at them, which are incoherent, and they have to guess what I mean by the context that I'm in. This is another Australian reference because I just love this book, again, from when I was a child. There's a book called The Magic Pudding, and the pudding is the main character in it, and it is really bad-tempered, this pudding, and everybody's trying to be nice to it. And it just says, no soft soap from total strangers. Which means, don't come over here being polite to me. I want to sit in my basin and be grumpy. It's a very bad-tempered steak and kidney pudding that talks, disturbingly. And the point here is, again, you know, if like me, you're not a good people person, one of the things that happens is you get into your shell and you're thinking, why are these people, can they not leave me alone? So no, they can't leave you alone because they're humans and so are you. I have to, like, every day come out and think, right, out of the shell and interact. And so if, like me, you know, you're not good with that, then remember. But if, on the other hand, you're a good people person, just remember some people in the team might be sitting there feeling really exposed. Help them be part of the team by not overstimulating them. Dear. Okay, what resources have we got? We have lots of things like books. Books are really good. This is a book my mother had when we were little, Teach Yourself Mothercraft, which told you how to do everything, really, from pre-birth right through till about 3. But she also had this one, Dr. Spock's Baby and Childcare, which is just falling to bits now, and that was what she used to help her with the process of being a mother, to understand what she needed to do. Now, there'll be people in the room thinking, well, isn't it just natural? Don't you just learn it from your mother? Well, not necessarily, no. Not necessarily. It isn't always obvious, these things. So you have to look at it in the book sometimes and see what the book says, and then you also have to learn by doing, by actually changing your mental habits, by changing the way you do things, by forcing yourself to do things in particular ways. And you can see when you look at 2 different books, they have radically different approaches to how you do things. So on the left-hand side here with the little girl, it says, good impressions have lasting results. And that book is saying, from a very early age, sit your child at the table with a lace tablecloth and a bunch of flowers and nice cutlery and pretty china, and she or he will learn that this is the proper way we behave at a table. Whereas the other approach says, feeling is learning. Put the plate in front of your child and let it plunge its hands in and wipe its face with food, and it'll learn about it. And I think it's really interesting because actually, you know, both things are quite important, really, because you want them to go through the rubbing porridge in their hair stage, but you also want them to come out of that not doing it at major restaurants. You know, so it's a sort of like you need both, don't you? They're both right in their different ways. Right, so we've got all these different skills areas that we need to think about, and the point is to help you get to know about those, you have to make an effort of mind. You have to understand what it is that you need to learn in those different areas, but basically it's the personal attributes that give you either the oomph that you're going to change yourself and improve and think about doing that constantly, or you haven't. So you maybe need to think about where you are on those personal attributes. I know I do on a daily basis. Every day I go to bed and think about the day and cringe at things that I've done. Absolutely cringe. And that's good, because it means next day I can get up and think, right, remember not to do those things that embarrassed you about yourself yesterday. This is a cookbook that my mother was given for a wedding present. And there's a number of things about this. One is it has a list of what you should be cooking at all stages, all the meals. So today is Thursday, it's autumn. Is there anybody who didn't have apples, porridge and sausages for breakfast? You've failed, I'm afraid. You haven't complied with what it says in the book. Now, the point here is that book's quite prescriptive, but it's not telling you you've got to do that. It's giving you a list of suggestions to help you when you're a beginner. So it's for a new homemaker. So this is what you need to do. This is a good time to get changed into a pretty frock for when your husband comes home from work. remember, you eat the leftovers so he can have a nice meal in the evening, you know, all that sort of stuff. All the stuff that we now discard and get, but there's actually some really good points in there. There's some horrifically awful recipes. Vegetarian duck. Take one vegetable marrow about the size of a duck, it starts off. That does not make it a duck. It's still a vegetable marrow. However, you know, they're trying. But the point about this was that when my mother got this wedding present, the person who gave it to her knew her really well, and she'd put this cartoon in the front. It says, lunch at 12:30, and I haven't found out who Fahrenheit is. And this actually, it sums me up, it sums my mother up. It's like, I need all the technical detail behind this to understand precisely what I need to do next. I have to have all the evidence. I have to understand whether these are the right people to listen to, you know, and so on and so forth. And this is something really important I've learned here, which is, yeah, that's not important right now, of course. Just go and make some cheese on toast. So if you've been listening to things this week and you're thinking, oh, God, that's complicated, I can't apply it. That person just talked about Capers-Jones, no idea who it is. Doesn't matter. Just do the cheese on toast. Take the bits that are right for you right now. Don't worry about the background and the detail. And then you work your way towards the other things. I want to finish by talking about a book which I used to learn to read. It's one of my learn to read books. The Rose and the Ring by William Thackeray. It's a nice little book, this. It's got pictures. It also has a glossary at the back so that when you're reading it, you can find out what words mean. Words like agitation, assiduous, confiscate, contemptuous, cumbersome, loathsome, obdurate. These aren't the sort of words you normally put in children's books these days, are they? Treacherous, usurper, death warrant. Anyway, it's a good book. It's a really good book. But one of the main characters in this is the Good Fairy Blackstick. And the Good Fairy Blackstick is a good fairy, and she goes to the christening of royal children and gives them gifts. And at the beginning of the book, she has given a rose and a ring to two princesses, which will bring them the appearance of beauty and intelligence. So if you're holding the rose or wearing the ring, you look beautiful, you look intelligent, and people will listen to you. If you hand it to somebody else, they get those attributes. And she says, at the beginning of the book, they had all those benefits. They were royal, they were rich, they had the rose, they had the ring, and what do they do with them? They wasted them. They've become vain and ignorant, and they think they're better than everybody else. So when she goes to those princesses' children's christening, she says to the baby in the cradle, the best thing I can wish you is a little misfortune. A little misfortune, because that means they're going to try harder. And I think that's really interesting. She realizes that a little misfortune, not a lot, but a little misfortune, leads you to be inspired, leads you to look for ways that you can change and improve your situation, makes you work hard, the perspiration, makes you think about renewing what you've got already and improving it, makes you think about perseverance because you haven't had everything handed to you on a plate. Makes you think about kindness to other people because people haven't been kind to you. Actually being better to those around you. Makes you think about honesty and not taking other things for granted and being honest with other people and being honest with yourself about what you can do and what you can't do. It's all right to say, no, I don't understand how to do that. Please explain it to me. It helps you to think about the general as well as the personal good. So what I want you to take out of today is whatever state you're in, compare it with the state I'm in. We're all in the same boat here. We all need to improve. It doesn't matter where we are in the industry. It doesn't matter how good we think we are. It doesn't matter how bad we think we are. We can all get better. We need to pick the things we want to improve. But we only ever get anywhere with hard work and the help of our friends. Thank you very much.